Yesterday, the LA Rams cut fan favorite linebacker Chris Pooh Paul Jr. Now, this was a surprise for many Rams fans because obviously linebacker has been a needy position for the Rams for a long time, and you just invested a 5th round pick into him and even traded some assets to get that 5th round pick. Rams don't typically address the linebacker position under Sean McVay in the draft, and so I don't think anybody saw this coming. And really, this is a guy who has had some high valuations around the league from different scouts and different evaluators on how high his ceiling is and the tools that you have to be able to work with. This was definitely not a player that anybody was expecting to be cut. The linebackers that the LA Rams ended up keeping was Nate Landman, Omar Speights, Troy Reeder, and Sean Dolak. So for us Rams fans who are curious on why Chris Paul Jr. ended up being cut by the Rams, here's the answer from McVay.
First of all, great dude. I really respect, him as a man, and not an easy decision, Stu. But what we are tasked to do is be able to evaluate what we think when we went with 4 inside linebackers. What do we think are the 4 best inside linebackers? And that's not exclusive to playing inside linebacker. Part of that is playing special teams. And Sean Dolak's a guy that's going to be able to play on all 4 phases. Troy Reeder is going to play on all 4 phases. And so when you look at Landman and Omar Speights as your starting inside linebackers when you're in your 2-backer defenses, those 3rd and 4th spots are heavily dictated and determined by, where do you create value, not exclusive to the inside linebacker position. And it's not anything to take away from Pooh, because I got respect, love, and wish him nothing but the best. But those 2 guys, made themselves really important, and that's why they'll have a jersey on game day.
Now, it is important to note Chris Paul has not been claimed off of waivers just yet, although I do fully expect him to be claimed by another team. Well, that was fast, because unfortunately, as I'm editing this video, the Seattle Seahawks just claimed Chris Pooh Paul Jr. off of waivers. Anybody but Seattle, man, come on. So as you guys gathered from that clip from Sean McVay, if you are not going to be a starting linebacker for the Rams, which it doesn't look like Chris Paul Jr. was going to be, at least at that moment, you have to provide some impact on special teams, and that is really important for the Rams. And Sean Dolak and Troy Reeder apparently have been providing that for the special teams at a higher rate than Chris Paul Jr. I don't know if that has to do with his injury that he was dealing with or what it may be, but the Rams value special teams, and that seems like with the roster that is so hard to make, something as small as like how much you can contribute on special teams made the difference for him. Sean McVay does seem very confident in Nate Landman and Omar Speights being the linebackers 1 and 2 for the Rams heading into this year, and honestly I don't disagree with that. I'm actually very excited to see what these 2 linebackers can do. We saw a lot of growth and potential in Omar Speights last year, and Nate Landman has been a guy who has made a lot of noise in camp. He's a guy who has the peanut punch and has been forcing a lot of fumbles, knows where he needs to be, has been in this kind of defense before. So I'm honestly confident with their 1 and 2 guys at linebacker right now, as Sean McVay is. Now, what I'm just personally curious about as a fan is, will we see Sean Dolak sprinkled into the defense at all? Will he eventually overtake any of these linebackers? Because we've heard great things about Sean Dolak as well, coming as an undrafted guy out of Buffalo, and how he knows the defense. He could teach it to anybody. We've even seen clips in the training camp of him being out there with the 1. So like, is there any point in the season where we see him take over, or if an injury happens, how will he handle having that role? I think he could be a guy who could be huge for this Rams team. It's just like, when do his opportunities come? And also as a fan, I'm just curious to see what happens with Pooh Paul wherever he goes, because I'm very confident another team is going to scoop him up. Hopefully it's not in the NFC West. So it's like, what does his career end up looking like, and what ended up going wrong? Was it really only special teams that separated him from making this roster? As McVay is mentioning, and as I've talked about before, again, this roster seems like a very hard roster to make. There's just a lot of depth we got. So something as small as special teams could end up making the difference. I just think it's interesting when you use a 5th round pick on a guy and you invest into a position that you don't typically invest to in the draft, just to be able to, like cut him that same year. It's just kind of crazy, but I guess that just speaks to the competition that the Rams have just all around this roster and the high standards that they may have. I'm just personally curious to see what ends up happening with his career, wherever he ends up going. So do you guys agree with this decision to cut Pooh Paul Jr. and to keep Troy Reeder, Omar Speights, Nate Landman, and Sean Dolak? I'm sure most of you disagree, but hopefully this insight from Sean McVay did help you guys understand a little bit more behind the scenes of why they ended up letting him go. But thank you so much for watching this video. If you could just subscribe and hit the like button if you do like Rams content. Be sure to look out for the Rams rivalry uniform video tomorrow. Those are dropping and I will be reacting to those, so can't wait to see you guys there. As always, horns up and God bless.